So you are joining us tonight for Nourishing Connections, Navigating Communication, Consent, and Boundaries. So this educational content is being sponsored by Desert Star Institute for Family Planning. We are a 501c3 nonprofit reproductive justice organization. Our mission is to create equitable access to reproductive and sexual health care while centering Black and Indigenous people of color. We envision a world where people exercise bodily autonomy, decide whether or not to bear children, and raise families in safe and sustainable communities free from oppression and violence. Our values include providing care that embodies whole person autonomy and full access to care. We center Black, Indigenous people of color in compassionate care and policy leadership for reproductive justice and systems change. We cultivate an expansive vision for healthcare, advocacy, and community health. And we nurture a community of committed individuals who believe in and advocate for Desert Star's vision and approach to reproductive justice. I am Dr. Deshawn Taylor. I am an OBGYN. I'm the founder and CEO of Desert Star Institute for Family Planning. I am a family planning specialist. I am a gender-affirming care provider. I'm an associate clinical professor, and I wear all of those hats in service of advancing reproductive health access through direct service, training, and advocacy. And so beyond our mission and vision, our work is guided by four main priorities. The first priority is our clinical care. We provide a steadfast resource for comprehensive family planning, gender affirming, and sexual health care. And we provide a safe and welcoming space for non-English speaking people, queer, transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and young people. And we provide care through our health justice clinic. Our second priority is the training of the next generation of abortion providers with the reproductive justice framework that focuses on the whole person and provides a unique understanding of the barriers historically marginalized people may encounter in medical communities where they've felt excluded. And that is our next generation abortion providers program. We currently have 2 people on rotation with us and have joined us for this webinar tonight. Our third priority is to deliver educational content and programs that help people from historically marginalized communities access reproductive health care and exercise autonomy over their bodies and lives. So we do this through doula programming and training, long-term birth control program, to name a couple of our programs in this area. And last but not least, we engage, build relationships, and mobilize policymakers, advocates, and directly impacted community members towards an Arizona that provides the conditions for people to freely decide when and how to form families and raise children. And we have 2 reproductive justice alliances that we have founded and co-facilitate, which is the Proactive Reproductive Justice Alliance and our Empower Alliance for Reproductive Justice. So with that brief overview of Desert Star Institute for Family Planning, please feel free to check us out at desertstarfp.org. Follow us on Instagram at desertstarfp, on Facebook at looking for Desert Star Family Planning, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And so let's get into who our esteemed speakers are tonight. So we have Kylie Elizabeth, owner and lead consultant at Virtuoso Education Consulting Services. Kylie is a mother of 2, an experienced educator, consultant, and community advocate with over a decade of service in kinder through 12 classrooms, school leadership, in state-level administration, and career and technical education. She is committed to cultivating sustainable learning environments that foster knowledge and build positive relationships among educators, students, and families and communities. Through Virtuoso Education Consulting Services, she also organizes and facilitates a variety of community events and workshops throughout the Phoenix metro area. And Michaela Valentino is a public health professional who has expertise in sexual education, community engagement, and behavioral health interventions. With a Bachelor of Science in Public Health and minor in psychology from the State University of New York, Potsdam, she has cultivated a career centered on empowering individuals and communities through education, outreach, and advocacy. Thank you to Kylie and Michaela for joining us for this very important discussion today. And I am going to turn it over to Michaela to get us started.
Okay, let's get started. So just to disclaimer, today we will be talking about sensitive topics such as sex, abuse, or trauma. So please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself throughout this session. We always want to mention our group agreements. So this is a confidential space. Whatever is said in here stays in here. So we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with that. We want to make sure that we respect each other's opinions, each other's experiences. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and then also being open-minded to receiving new information. So our objectives for today, we really want this to be a safe space for all women to build confidence to have these open and honest conversations with themselves and with their partners or other people in their lives. We also want to understand the foundational elements of a healthy relationship. We want to discuss healthy communication, setting boundaries, giving and receiving consent, and how to navigate conflict. We are going to recognize the warning signs of unhealthy or abusive relationships and provide the appropriate support and resources for that. And then finally, we're going to talk about online safety and technology use. So understanding the platforms, seeing the safety precautions, the red flags, and understanding how to detect online predators. So starting with foundations for healthy relationships. What is a relationship? So this can be friends, acquaintances, family members, romantic partners, strangers. So take this time during the session to think about the people in your lives that are close to you and the values, the relationships that you value. So another type of relationship that is just as important as other types of relationships that we just discussed is yourself, your relationship with yourself. So understanding yourself and having self-awareness lays the foundation for your well-being and how you navigate relationship with others. So it's going beyond self-love, self-care. How do you truly understand your thoughts, your feelings, your body, emotions? So this can look like practicing self-compassion, self-acceptance. So showing yourself the same respect, love, understanding that you give to others. Basic self-care. So are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? Are you giving yourself the rest that you need? And then remembering that setting goals and maintaining habits can also help you build confidence, self-sufficiency, a sense of accomplishment, and help with your overall and mental health. So I want you all to think, what's your idea of a good partner? So feel free to put in the chat what you think your ideal partner is. And I'm going to have either Dr. Taylor or Kylie monitor the chat for me just because I can't see it at the moment. So take a moment to think about the green flags that you want in a partner. Do we have any green flags?
Yes, we do. We have caring, somebody who is supportive for my goals, someone who is open, communicative, someone who is kind, someone who actually listens, just to name a few. A good communicator, emotionally intelligent, patient and open-minded.
Wow, we have a bunch. Those are great. I love all of those. Yeah, feel free to keep adding in the chat. We're going to talk about them a little bit more. So all of these qualities that you all just shared are representative of those supportive behaviors, right? So this includes open communication, honesty, trust, caring, loving. And then sometimes people can exhibit unsupportive behaviors. So this can look like a lack of communication, being dishonest, lying, saying hurtful, unkind words, not taking the other person's feelings into consideration, pressuring, or maybe having the other person pressure you to do something that you don't want to do, right? So these behaviors can be considered yellow or red flags or even warning signs that may be corrected with open communication, reflection, or even a support from a counselor. However, while unsupportive behaviors can create strain in a relationship, some behaviors can cross the line into being abusive. So it's important to understand what these look like so you can recognize when a relationship becomes unsafe. So this can look like accusing you of things you haven't done, so making you feel like you're always walking on eggshells. Maybe it's blame shifting, so someone hurts your feelings and then they might turn it around on you, saying it's your fault and that you're too sensitive. So this can really make you doubt your own experiences. They might isolate you from your friends, family, or support systems. They might use manipulation tactics, which can take many forms. So this can be gaslighting, which makes you doubt your own reality, your own memory, your sanity, and then influencing you or guilting you into doing what they want. So it's about what they want, not what you want. And then it could also be forceful behavior. So this is when someone uses intimidation, threats, or physical force to gain control. So it can be physical, verbal, emotional. Examples are yelling, blocking your exit, threatening self-harm to keep you from leaving the relationship. So now that we understand all the different types of behaviors and relationships, there's many more, but those are some categories that we broke them down into. We are going to get into this traffic light activity. So the traffic light activity is going to work where I'm going to read a statement and you're going to decide, is it abusive? So is it red? Is it unsupportive? Is it yellow? Or is it green? Is it supportive? So we're going to start with the first one. So again, you can put in the chat what you think, either red, abusive, yellow, unsupportive, green, supportive. Says who you can and cannot talk to. What do we think about that one?
The reds are coming in full force, Michaela.
Yeah, right. That one's pretty quick to realize that that's a red flag, right? So this is something to think about where they might be trying to take control over you, right? So that can turn into the abusive um, behavior. Yes. So always picking what you do together. What do we think about this one?
So we're starting with the yellow, a brave one person. The reds came faster on the last one. This one, people seem to be thinking about a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super fair. I would say I'm gonna reveal. So it is yellow. I think it can be between yellow and red. So both are valid. And I want to ask you all again, if you can put in the chat, why you think this might be a yellow or red. Why might people be a little more confused with this one or not sure? I want to know
So
why.
I'll read one comment in the chat. I feel like this could be corrected with mindful communication.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. Mindful communication. So that is the supportive behaviors, right? And maybe if we see this as unsupportive, then just communicating about it, and having those active listening, using those active listening skills, right? And having negotiation skills as well, mixed in there, I think we can get to a green light. So great example. Thank you. Making decisions together. Red, yellow, or green?
We have a green with exclamation. The greens are coming in very quickly here.
Great. Great. Yes, exactly. So this is green. So this is having that communication, caring about the other person's thoughts, their feelings, having trust in each other, right, to make decisions together. Yes. Okay, feels entitled to having sex with you. Do we think this is red, yellow, or green?
We have one red so far. Okay, another red. Okay, the reds are coming in. Someone says no one is entitled to your body.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I like to hear that. Yes. So absolutely. This is definitely a red or abusive behavior. So exactly what someone said in the chat. no one is entitled to your body. You should have your own bodily autonomy. And just because you're in a relationship with someone doesn't mean you owe them anything. Doesn't mean you owe them sex whenever they want it. And then if you're not in a relationship, some people might think that just because you were drinking together or you went out and you're flirting, that they feel entitled to having sex with you. That is not the case. If you say no, then they shouldn't even question it after that. So absolutely great. Thank you for sharing. Pressures you when you're uncomfortable. What do we think?
Okay, we have a red with an exclamation point. Okay, we have another red. Okay, the reds are starting to come in. Yellowish, someone said.
Yeah, does anyone feel comfortable sharing why they put red or yellow?
I have yellow. I think it depends on the circumstance.
Okay, depends on the circumstance. What do we think specifically? What kind of circumstances?
Is it like good comfort or bad comfort? Like a
Right.
discomfort? Like, are they trying to push you for something good or, you know, push you to make you feel uncomfortable, maybe purposely?
Right. No, that's a great point. Exactly. So sometimes it's good to have a little bit of motivation rather than maybe that's a better word than pressure for helping your partner do something that maybe they wouldn't normally do or outside of their comfort zone, or then rather having this pressure of making you feel uncomfortable with something that you're not okay with, right? Yeah. So great. Thank you, Kylie.
I can read a couple of comments that are in the chat now. One says, if your partner cares about your comfortability, pressure should not be a question. Another person said, if it's something that won't harm you, like stepping out of social comfort zone, and the pressure is encouraging, then yellow. But if you have asserted no to something and keep being pressured into it, then red.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you all explained it very well. So, again, thank you for that. Yeah, so this can be seen as a red or abusive behavior. And again, I think it can be debatable. So I think it can fall more under the yellow, but thinking about pressuring when you're uncomfortable in a negative way, then it's definitely a red and abusive behavior. So, what can we do if we experience these behaviors, these abusive behaviors? So, if it's more unsupportive, if you feel safe, you can let the other person know that you don't like the way that they're treating you and talk through that with them. Maybe talk with the counselor together. And then if it is starting to get more towards that abusive type of behavior, then going to someone you trust, so a friend, a family member, a counselor, people that you feel comfortable sharing this information with. So getting into communication and conflict resolution. We've talked about different behaviors and relationships, and now we're going to talk about different communication styles. So, whether or not you're in a relationship, it's good to know how to communicate with others, your friends, your family members, your coworkers. So, this really helps you to express your experiences, convey and meet your own needs, staying connected with others, dealing with conflict, and then building a stronger and healthy relationship with others. So here we have three different types of communication. We have passive, aggressive, and assertive. And I'm going to go through which one, what they look like, and what kind of outcome you can get from each type of communication. So with passive, this looks like giving in, not speaking up. And usually you don't get what you want. The other person might win, and then you might feel used by that person. So this is saying lots of ums, maybe just saying nothing, just soft, looking down, looking away, fidgeting. And then we have aggressive. So this can be threatening or forcing a person to give you something. This is trying to get your own way to by standing up for yourself, but also while putting someone else down. So usually you may get what you want, but then the other person loses, and then the other person ends up with hurt feelings. So this can be put down words, just taking what you want, being loud, cold, staring, looking angry, being stiff and rigid, hands on your hips, finger pointing, things like that. And then we have assertive. So assertive is giving people an honest no to things you don't want. So asking straight for what you want without putting the other person down, and not using other people or letting yourself be used. So often you get what you want, you keep your self-respect, you respect others, and you don't hurt others. So this is honest, direct words, clear, firm, loud, loud enough to be heard, but not too loud. And then direct eye contact, being relaxed, things of that nature. So different types of communication helps us communicate our boundaries and consent, right? So boundaries are our personal boundaries are physical, emotional, and mental limits that we establish to protect ourselves from being manipulated, used, or violated by others. Boundaries help us outline what we are and are not comfortable with. And since every relationship is different, where we set our boundaries with different people can vary with each person in our lives. So this is just an example, a visual of those people in our lives. So typically we might share more information or feel closer to people towards the middle of the circle. So we have ourself, our intimate relationship, family, friends, acquaintances, and then on the outside, strangers. Boundaries can be set around how much personal information you share with people, how much time you spend together, what levels of physical closeness you share, and what activities you do together, and many other things. So, a person with healthy boundaries can say no to people when they're too busy, they don't have time, they're uncomfortable saying yes, they want time to relax, or they simply don't want to. And again, these are just a few examples. So, they can sound like, I'm not comfortable with that, I'm not comfortable talking about this, that's inappropriate, please stop. I hear what you're saying, but I've made my decision, or that doesn't work for me. So boundaries can help us also with consent. So consent will help give permission for someone to do something, right? So this is a verbal and affirmative expression of consent that can help you and your partner both understand and respect each other's boundaries. Who should we give our consent to? So this is similar to what I was talking about with boundaries. It's going to depend person to person, but with your family and friends, you might be okay giving your family member or a friend permission to hug you, but maybe with other family members, you might want not hugs at all. And then with your partner and significant other, there are different levels of intimacy in every relationship. So you want to make sure that you're giving consent to your partner, depending on what is okay with you and the sexual desires that you have, the likes and dislikes, or maybe it just depends on your mood as well. So I have this slide here talking about consent and sex because it's important to understand the different types of sex that you can have with someone in order to give your consent to that specific activity. So to name a few, we have sexual fantasy, masturbation, holding, hands, cuddling, hugging. It can be phone sex, sexting, kissing. Then we have skin to skin genital touching, and then sexual intercourse. So these are definitely behaviors to keep in mind when you're thinking about what you're consenting to. So again, in the chat, if you could say how might your boundaries and understanding of consent shift depending on the type of sexual activity involved. So how might your boundaries change, and your ability to give consent change depending on the sexual activity that we just talked about? Do we have any ideas?
So we have someone put in the chat, just by being aware of what it is you don't want to do and what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. It goes back to that awareness and self-awareness, right? The relationship with yourself and how strong that is to be able to have that confidence, right? To know what you are and are not okay with, right? So yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any others?
We have boundaries and consent around protection we use.
Yeah, the protection you use, that's a great point as well. So I think this is a common one. I think oftentimes Sometimes we assume that the man has the condom, or sometimes the man will assume that they don't have to use a condom. It just depends. And I'm just saying, man and woman, it can be people of all genders. But for example, you could be hooking up with someone and you ask them to use a condom, and then maybe they say they're going to, and then they don't pull it out, and then you're like, wait, did you not hear what I just said? I just said that I wanted to use a condom. And so reinforcing that, but again, we're talking about consent because the person hearing that should hear that the first time and be able to follow and respect your boundaries and the consent that you gave, right? So yes. Great
So
example.
some other things, I feel like they change as you change, likes, dislikes, limits, what you want, need. And then someone said yes to that, and then also added, and you can change your mind at any time for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have maybe you're comfortable with kissing, but not touching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to get into that. I love that point that someone brought up of the fact that you can remove consent at any time. So that actually leads us into the next few slides. So again, thank you for participating in that. So all relationships require mutual respect and consent. So consent should be freely communicated and clearly communicated. Asking for consent, both partners must agree to all of the activities. So again, depending on all the activities we discussed, both partners must agree to that. It's not just one person's idea, right? It's also important to remember for boundaries that you're asking your partner what they're comfortable and what they're not comfortable with, and that's going to help with solidifying consent. And then checking in with the person. So asking them how they're feeling, seeing if there's anything they want to do differently or if they want to stop altogether, because again, it's okay to remove your consent at any time for any reason. So here are some more examples of what asking for consent looks like. So it can be even something like, can I borrow your phone? Would you like a hug? Can I give you a kiss? I want to kiss you now. Are you okay with that? Can I try that? Can I touch you there? And then checking in with consent. So again, thank you for bringing that up. You can say, remember, we talked about this. Is this still okay? Right? Because maybe you talked about it a while ago, but it's been a while. So it's good to check in and make sure that the person hasn't changed their mind or wants to do something differently. You can say, I'm loving this. Are you? I feel good. Are you feeling good? You seem not sure, quiet, what's up? Are you okay? Right? So just because someone's not saying anything doesn't mean that they're okay. If they're silent, maybe it's okay to check in with them and say, hey, does this hurt? Does this feel good to you? Things like that, because I think this is a very common experience, especially that women feel when having sex. I think, are conditioned to almost take pain sometimes because of things like what people see on porn and what we've kind of been conditioned to think. So, yeah, I think this is a really important one for your partner to understand that just because you're not speaking up and saying that this hurts doesn't mean that they shouldn't check in with you while you're having any type of sexual intercourse. Okay, so for fries, I love this analogy or this acronym. So fries stands for freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So each letter dives deeper into what consent looks like. And this is just a good way to remember what parts of consent you should include when with your partner or with anyone. So freely given. So a person needs to be sober. They can't be drunk, high, or asleep. So the person that is drunk or high or asleep doesn't understand what the other person is asking and can't consent, even if they say yes in their sleep, or even if they say yes while they're drunk. It's legally, you cannot consent when you are under the influence. It's always reversible. We talked about this. So a person who has said yes in the past may not give consent right now. People can change their minds at any time. It also needs to be informed. So you must know what you're saying yes to and know the full story. So again, those different types of sex, maybe the setting, the time of day, things like that. Having a mutual understanding to make the best decision for the both of you. Being enthusiastic. So if someone says, do you want to have sex? And you're like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. they shouldn't take that as a yes. It should be, yeah, I want to have sex. Like, let's do this. So, we want to make sure that it's clear to both people that it's that you're both excited about it, and then even more so that you really want it. And then it needs to be specific. So this is similar to informed, but you want to make sure that even after you have given your consent and you know ahead of time what's happening, that while you're having sex, or just understanding that you're giving consent to all activities that are happening. So if you start doing something that you weren't expecting, to make sure that you stop, that the other person stops, and you can talk about that before getting into it. So yeah, if a person agrees to making out, that doesn't mean that they're agreeing to sexual intercourse, right? That's just a little example there. So why is consent important? It is the law. So we want to make sure that we know, again, the laws around being under the influence, the age of consent. The age of consent is 18 in Arizona. It helps build intimacy, enjoyment, and trust between you and your partner. It helps prevent misunderstandings and hurting someone. And then you get to know each other's likes and dislikes through that as well. So when is it not consent? Again, under the age of consent, 18 in Arizona, under the influence of alcohol, drugs, when someone's asleep or unconscious, or under threat or intimidation or coercion. So I think this is important to just kind of drive home, because it's really important to always keep this in the back of your mind, that this is never a time where consent is legally able to be given, or that it might not be considered sexual abuse. So again, we are going to be talking about sexual abuse a bit more just to end this portion. So if you experience sex without consent, in many cases, sex without consent is a crime with serious consequences. So sexual assault can happen between people of any age, sexual orientation, age, ability, race, ethnicity. Sexual assault can also happen between strangers or people who know each other, but it actually usually happens between people who know each other. Usually the person who might be sexually assaulted will know their perpetrator. So my last question for you all to answer in the chat: what are ways we can keep ourselves safe and protected against sexual violence? What can we do to support each other? Maybe making the community aware, educating others. What do we have in the chat?
We have some things now. Standing up for ourselves when we don't want to do something, speaking up and out. The next one is never leave your friend alone at a bar. Yes, I love this one
Mm-hmm.
so much. Uh,
Yes.
let's see. Believe victims, speaking up for those who don't feel comfortable doing so. Looking out for each other, intervening, saying something if you see something. I'd like to share a quick story, very quick one.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in college, I didn't drink alcohol at all. So I was always the person looking out for the girls. And this guy was carrying one of my friends out of a party on his over his across his shoulder. She was just giggling. And I stopped him and I'm like, no. He's like, who are you, her mother? I'm like, look, whatever you thought was about to happen tonight is not happening. Put my friend down now. And
Mm-hmm.
that poor girl, she was so out of it. And I was just like, my goodness, I'm just glad that I was watching.
Yeah, thank God, because the assumption is that they were partying together and maybe they talked about having sex, but if she was intoxicated, she can't consent to having sex. So, maybe if that was where it was leading to, you really saved her. So that's amazing. And that's what we need to see in our friendships. I definitely agree with all of them. And I would love to write all of them down if we can copy and paste them somewhere, because I just love this conversation. But again, Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. So finally, what to do about sexual abuse. So first, you always want to tell someone you trust. This can be really difficult just speaking it out loud. So making sure you're going to someone that you feel comfortable with that. You can go to the police. You can talk to a counselor, calling a crisis line. If you experience sexual abuse, you can also go to the hospital to get Plan B. You can get Plan B at pharmacies as well, but to get tested with a rape kit. And it's important to know that if you try to shower before going to get a rape kit, it's going to mess with the results. So if you are sexually abused or raped, then going straight to the hospital as soon as possible, calling the police, and getting to the hospital and getting tested is the number one thing you can do if that's a step that you want to take. So making sure that you're not showering before. And then also finding a support group. So I think there's a lot of support out there, and there are many people who experience this. And so there are more people than you think that experience sexual abuse. So finding a support group and people that you can talk to about these situations. So remember, when it comes to sex, you always have the right to say no. Consent is not a blanket statement. So, yes to one thing does not mean yes to everything else. You can always withdraw your consent at any time for any reason. And then always make sure that you have the right to report. Just because even if you experience sex without consent, a lot of people might not want to report, but know that you have the right to. And making sure that they know that the incident and the story of where your consent was violated. And then we have some resources. So there are tons of resources in the area. I put some national and local and national resources here. So we have the Maricopa County Victim Resources, National Sexual Assault Hotline. There's a ton of great resources. So we will have this on our resource slide at the end. Feel free to take a look at that. The presentation will also be on there. So I wanted to thank you all for listening and participating. This has been a really great experience. And again, I really want to write down all of your answers to all the questions because I really enjoyed, everything. So this is my information. You can find me on LinkedIn and social media, on Instagram. And we are going to switch it over to Kylie.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing all right. So again, thank you, Dr. Taylor and Michaela, for your portion of the presentation. Today, I will be running over relationships and online safety. Again, I'm an education and a mom, and just being in the world of education and a parent of a 13-year-old, understanding a lot of like warning signs and stuff that happens with online safety. But even as an adult and what I've experienced kind of growing up with technology, it's really important for us to understand how to be safe online, and also if you're a parent, how to protect your children as well. So we'll be going over some topics on social media and mental health, cyberbullying, online grooming, online dating, and love fraud or love scams. And I'll also have some additional resources for you. So here's a little bit of facts on online dating. So I'm sorry, excuse me, wrong one. Social media and mental health. So 1/3 of adults who spend on average 2 hours a day on social media report feeling helpless and discouraged. And 78% of research studies find a link between high school social media use and worse mental health in adults. So not just the time spent, but patterns of use such as late night scrolling, frequent checking, comparisons, and passive consumption, and how these can link to sleep problems, anxiety, irritability, feelings of helplessness, and being out of control. So you may ask, why is this relevant to today's conversation? Again, there's a lot of issues in social media, and we're going to get into a couple other topics in relation, but the excessive use of social media and screen time can make our mental health, dim, and also make our critical thinking a little less impactful if we're constantly in these patterns of being on social media. So we all know the different types of social media platforms with Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. But then we also have our dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, communication resources like Discord and Google Meets, and then content sharing. So Pinterest and YouTube. So these are all the common types that you'll see everyone on. And again, it's very helpful for us to be mindful of what we're doing and how we're utilizing these platforms, and also being sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where we are putting our personal privacy at risk while we're using these platforms. So some protective actions and preventing strategies for social media is looking at limiting time on apps that increase stress or comparison, talking to a counselor or trusted adult if you feel overwhelmed, because we can get looped in those rabbit holes of being in social media, and then engaging in supportive online spaces promoting positivity and well-being. So this leads us into cyberbullying, which please put in the chat. And ladies, if anybody's responding or adding, please feel free to share that out for me. So when we're looking at the definition of cyberbullying, and I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard of it, cyberbullying is the use of technology to harass, threaten, embarrass, or target another person online. Threats and a mean of aggressive or rude texts or tweets or posts or messages on any counts. So just posting personal information, pictures, or videos designed to hurt or embarrass someone else. So there is studies coming out about cyberbullying and the adverse online experience in relation to harassment, exclusion, and bullying correlate with poor mental health outcomes and stress, anxiety, and depression, low self-esteem, and feeling of isolation or worthlessness. So many studies in adolescent and youth samples link cyberbullying victimization with increased risk of suicidal ideation, depression, and anxiety. So a little bit of more facts, and 26.5% of teenagers have experienced cyberbullying within the last 30 days. 73% of girls and young women have received unwanted sexual content, and roughly 23% of US teens report being cyberbullied monthly. LGBTQ plus teens also face higher rates, and 80% or more of teens talk about anxiety, drugs, self-harm, or depression online. And girls in particular mention disordered eating and mental health concerns. So what does this have to do with adults? So for the adults in the room, young adults, this is still very much applicable to us. And so many of the behaviors studied among teens continue into young adulthood, name calling, rumor spreading, exclusion, direct threats. If you are someone, if you feel comfortable sharing in the chat that you face cyberbullying, you can share. I have personally back in the MySpace days, and I tell you, I was harassed for 6 months by this person through MySpace. It was the worst thing ever. It was very frustrating. And somehow she got my number and it went into excessive phone calls every day. Another story for another time, but we all face some of those hard issues. And young adults often use more platforms now, more public content sharing and more data relationship apps, thus overlapping risk domains. So there's a lot of ways that risk is happening, especially if you're exposing yourself too much in the virtual world. So it's very important to stay safe on those platforms that you're using. Use privacy settings, be careful with the cookie settings, and know the sites that you're going to, or clear your settings and change your passwords frequently. Emerging research from 2025 suggests that cyberbullying could be considered an adverse child experience because its trauma effects may mirror those of other forms of abuse, like PTSD symptoms. So there's a lot of new research coming out about this. And if you're a research person and somebody in the mental health world, this is good information to know about the implications of of online use. And some last prevention and proactive actions is blocking and reporting users who harass or threaten you, saving screenshots of harmful messages and evidence, and avoiding engaging with bullying or posting reactive responses. So if you need to, the key piece here is saving or screenshotting evidence, especially if it's sexual harassment, and anything that's threatening your physical safety. Those are evidence pieces that you want to have. So don't delete those types of things if you're going to be making reports. So leaning in a little bit more sensitive topic, just for a preface. So online grooming. So online grooming is a heavy topic, and it is a form of child abuse or adolescent sexual abuse that occurs when an adult uses the internet or other technology to establish a relationship with a child with the intention of sexually exploiting them. So in a recent report about grooming from Thorn, who's a nonprofit that combats child sexual abuse, discovered that about 40% of children or teens online have been approached by someone who they thought were attempting to befriend or manipulate them. So again, going into Roblox, there's a huge conversations about Roblox. If you're a teen or an adult in online safety, with the online safety, is especially if you're a parent with young children or teenagers, monitoring those conversations and making sure that your children know not to have those conversations with individuals that they don't know. And sorry, let me pull my notes back up right here. Again, and with the online grooming, these are going to be some of your characteristics of online grooming. So if you experienced any of these, again, you could feel free to chime in. Ladies, did I miss anything in the chat to go back on? I know I'm talking a little quickly.
People are just listening intently.
Gotcha. Yes, this one's a little bit more intense. And so where online grooming can occur can happen on any platform, again, that allows communication and interaction, including social media, messaging apps, online games, and live streaming platforms. So these are some of your key characteristics here. So that building trust and relationships. So they're going to pretend to be your best friend and, going to offer to build a strong relationship with you. They might use deception or manipulation. So that's kind of the opposite, right? They're manipulating you. They're lying about their age. They are creating fake profiles. And this is true for games all the way through dating sites. If you've experienced being catfished, that it's a whole thing. But some take it to the extra level. The sexualization or this one's a hard word, desensitization is the interaction that often begins seeming very innocent conversations, but gradually progresses to include sexual content or language. So they won't start right off the bat with hitting you with rough topics about sex or having explicit language. They will ease into those conversations. And pressures and threats, either establishing that there's trust, that the groomers may also be pressuring a person into engaging in sexual activity and sending images or meeting that person in person. There is a term called sextortion, where the groomer blackmails the child or the person with previously sent images. And so there are a lot of studies on this. There are a lot of resources about this. And again, for us as young adults, or parents that have teens, children, it's very important to be mindful of these tactics and how individuals prey upon us to have that sexual return. And a couple other ones that are really important on here is that gifts or money. So they'll try to bribe you, right, with gifts and money, and make you feel good, and it could be too good to be true, but a lot of those things can be very, very key factors of warning signs. And so some here of the risk and warning signs to look out for is something called the 4 C's. So you have your content, your contact, your contract, and your conduct. So if you're looking at these here, how can you see the warning signs? So within content, you have unexpected, explicit sexual or violent content, especially via links or apps, especially in dating apps. People send nudes when they're not wanted, right? And so, but if it's something that's coming frequently, you have to be mindful of those types of things. The contact, so they might be stranger requests, grooming behaviors, and flattery, secrets and gifts. It's unsolicited messaging. So do you want to be my friend? And hey, you're so pretty, like all of these things, right? The contract is accidentally signing up or oversharing your data. So they have those phishing scams. So be sure to, again, be careful with emails that you're clicking on, or if you're clicking on ads in social media or on gaming sites, that you know where they come from and that they're legit. And for conduct is that cyberbullying, again, name calling, rumor spreading, exclusion, sharing embarrassing content. So being very mindful of those 4Cs can help you avoid some of that risk. With grooming, again, being cautious for anyone who asks for secrecy or private communication, limiting sharing of your personal photos. So, that's as old as time is, don't send nude photos to an individual, especially if you don't know them, and talk to trusted adults or friends. And then with sexual exploitation or trafficking, again, sexual trafficking is a huge issue right now in the United States, and it's very relevant and prevalent here in Arizona. So never, sending that content, recognizing those signs of control, and contact authorities if someone threatens to share private materials. And then for those of us who are in the online dating, well, not me personally, but if you're in the online dating world, just to be mindful of online dating. So 30% of all US adults under 50 report ever using a dating app or site. And 48% of dating app users report at least one unwanted behavior like unsolicited sexual messaging. High usage of online dating and social media apps can amplify mental health risks and increase exposure to online harms. So again, being so consumed with online, sometimes we forget fake from reality, and we end up in this world that we create in our mind, and we have to be able to separate from that. So we're very technology driven era, and so you guys really have to pay attention, ladies, to what is happening in that space, to be sure that you're keeping yourself safe. And one other factor, and I'll kind of leave off with this subject, but love can cost everything, right? And so I don't know if anybody ever heard of love bombing, but here we're going to talk about love frauds and love scams. There's a show out on Netflix that just came out, and I'll show you the trailer, the visual of it, and you guys can watch that later. But in 2022, Americans lost over 1.3 billion to romance scams, with nearly 70,000 victims. And in 2023, the reported losses were over 1 billion across 64,000 reports, with the median loss of 2,000, making it the costliest type of imposter scam reported to the FTC. So scammers often use online dating and social media sites to build trust before asking for money, and victims can experience significant emotional and financial devastation. And this is the show here. That is on Netflix, and that you can watch. But this show definitely really hit hard about the love scamming, and I believe it's called Love Scam on Netflix. I don't, if you've watched it, put in the chat. But it really blew my mind that we as women, and there was men in there as well, that can really be blindsided by love. So again, understanding your boundaries, especially as Michaela talked about earlier, when you're setting boundaries, that still goes to your financial boundaries. And if you're going to be in relationships, don't just start giving money to somebody because you have it, right? You have to feel that person out. You have to understand what are they bringing to you? Is it an equal relationship? And you don't want to come out of all of your money because this person is scamming you. So definitely be careful. If it's somebody that you don't know, you shouldn't be giving them money right off the bat. And again, I just talked about all of that. And so a couple of key pieces on here is being cautious of love interests who claim to be outside of your country, or military personnel who claim that they can't take leave. If you can't meet the person, see the person, engage with that person, definitely do not send anybody any money. And be skeptical of people who ask for personal information, such as your bank account numbers, credit cards, social security. Nobody asks for that information. The only people that should is really the people you work for to deposit money into your bank account. You guys should not be giving this information to a lot of people unless you're receiving aid, but especially not for people trying to be in love with you. So if you've experienced any of this, I know we're coming to the end, feel free to put that in the chat if you've experienced any social media or online dating issues.
Yeah, the online dating one is common. I block anyone who's working overseas on a dating app. I have here, don't give personal info like family member names either when first talking to folks online.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and there I'll just share a real quick I know we're almost out of time, but one of my little cousins, she, when we're going back to the grooming, she was 12 at the time, met a man who she didn't know was a man through Discord on a gaming app, and he basically convinced her to steal her mom's car in the middle of the night and tried to get her to drive over state lines to do some things to her that were not appropriate for her age. And she didn't know, and so again, I'll just caveat as a parent, and if you have young children, teenagers, if you're a parent in the room, if you have siblings, anybody under you, you have to have these open conversations and honest conversations to keep them safe. And sometimes we don't like to talk about these topics, but it is really important to share this information to be able to allow especially young girls and young boys to advocate and stick up for themselves and not feel ashamed if something happens. But staying silent on these topics will not help prepare them for the real world if something like this happens. So I thank you all for joining the presentation today. This is my information, but of course we'll send that over to you. And we do have a quick survey at the end for you to give us a little bit of feedback for me and Michaela about these topics and if they are helpful for you. And then we also have extra resources there at the end for you today. So thank you for joining us. And Dr. Taylor, I will turn it back over to you.
And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I just wanted to take a moment to end with any final comments from our speakers, any calls to action, and before we all leave each other tonight. Michaela?
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining tonight. This has been really great. I hope we can do more in the future. I think we can definitely dive deeper into these topics. So every topic we talked about today, I think could have its own webinar and its own conversation. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what's possible in the future. And again, thank you for having us, Dr. Taylor, and it's been really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just for me, basically what I said is just to advocate and don't be afraid to have these conversations. But if you're someone dealing with those major issues and things are happening to you, please know that you have a community that will support you and resources to help you out. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
This was a full half-day workshop that the two of these put together, and I was like, yes, let's try to get it into a webinar, and we can definitely do part 2, maybe even part 3. So thank you all. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for 2026. This is our last virtual education session of 2025, and thank you all so much for your support.